Hi, welcome to my channel, Troy's Life with CKD. My name's Troy and I have chronic kidney disease. I have a bunch of content that I'll be putting out soon. Topics include my health, and I guess my experiences, the whole foods plant-based diet, health and fitness, and much more. So you'll probably see me glancing down at my computer. I have it here just because I have a lot to talk about and I want to make sure I don't miss anything important or I guess relevant. So this video in particular is mainly going to be about my health history and kind of bring you guys up to speed on what's going on with me. And that will kind of lay a foundation for, other things that I want to talk about or can talk about, depending on your guys' input. Let's see. So I guess to start, growing up I was fairly normal, I would say. I went to school, I played sports, I hung out with friends, and I ate pretty much everything and anything. So I was just a normal kid, a normal teenager or whatever. And then when I was 18, my world kind of started to get turned upside down. Let's see, when I was 18, I had this first sort of, I'm going to refer to them as episodes. When I was 18, I woke up one morning and I was feeling terrible. I was super nauseous, I had a headache, I was, exhausted. I was tired, yet I still couldn't sleep. I was kind of restless. Let's see, and then I think the biggest, I knew something was wrong. I think the biggest kind of indicator that something was really wrong was my urine was blood red. And I'm not just saying like, it wasn't just pink, it was like blood red, like deep, dark blood red. And, that's kind of, so that's something different, I guess you could say. Like that's not normal. So anyways, I think that lasted for about 4 days, and after that it kind of just disappeared. It kind of just, the blood in my urine kind of just went away. So I think at the time, anyways, like thinking back now, of course, like I should have done something as soon as I saw blood in my urine. But at the time, I didn't really. I guess I really didn't think too much of it. I kind of ignored the fact that something could be wrong, or the possibility that something could be wrong, so I kind of just, I let it go. So anyways, after it cleared up, I think about 2 months later, the same thing happened again. Except I guess I kind of felt it coming a little bit more so. I got home from school, I think it was like late afternoon, early evening, and I was just exhausted. I crawled into bed basically thinking like, oh, I just need to take a nap or something like that. But little did I know I would sleep for like 15 or 16 hours and wake up like the next morning. So once again I had, that total body fatigue, exhaustion. I had a headache, and I also had blood in my urine again. Let's see. Oh yeah, so anyways, I learned later on, but at the time, I learned later on not to take Advil or ibuprofen, because that's bad for people who have chronic kidney disease. But at the time, I was taking Advil. I think I took one every day for 4 days to try and get rid of that headache that was kind of bugging me. Let's see. So I think by the second time around, the second episode that happened, I really knew something was wrong, and it kind of sunk in a bit more, because once again, blood in your urine is not normal. And then kind of just having these episodes come out of nowhere and kind of just make you immobile in a sense. I knew that I had to kind of figure out what was going on. Let's see. So I saw a urologist, and we did some tests, some blood work, and like I guess a urinalysis or a urine test. And they found that my creatinine was 1.44, which was higher than, what is considered to be normal. So they recommended I do a CT scan to see kind of what's going on with me and I guess my insides. So they did the CT scan, and then it turned out that nothing really showed to be abnormal, so I didn't have any kidney stones. Let's see, I didn't have any tumors, nor did I have cancer in my kidneys or bladder. So I guess that was kind of good news. I mean, I think the latter two would have been very bad and unfortunate. But I guess they still didn't really know what was going on given the results of my CT scans. So I then went to see a nephrologist, and they suggested, or the nephrologist suggested, that I do a kidney biopsy. Let's see here. Oh yeah. So I guess at the time that I talked to a nephrologist about kind of my health and what was going on, we did another set of labs, and then my labs seemed to get better. They were more so back in the standard normal range. So I didn't end up doing the biopsy at that point in time, just because everything seemed to be, getting better, or I was going back to normal. Let's see. So then after that, basically what I and the nephrologist talked about was that I just needed to monitor my health a bit more closely and kind of try and figure out, what might be causing these kind of episodes or these flares that I was having, which was causing, the headaches, the fatigue, and also the blood in my urine. So I went to college. The entire first year of college, actually, I was fine. I was normal. I didn't have any of those episodes. I didn't have any of those flares. And then I thought everything was, everything was going smoothly, I guess you could say. Let's see. And then I guess I went back to school the second year around, and everything was fine at the very start, but then once again, one of those episodes kind of happened, I think it was like a couple months into school, and then I had to go to the doctor and I don't know if it was the doctor or like the emergency room. It might have been, I think it was the emergency room or urgent care. So I went there, and I kind of gave them a little background in terms of what was going on with me and my health, and how I didn't really know what was going on, but what these episodes kind of entailed in terms of how I was feeling. So anyways, they gave me antibiotics to kind of, or I guess in hopes of me getting rid of the blood in my urine. Maybe the episodes were I'm tripping over my words. Maybe the episodes were caused by an infection, so they gave me an antibiotic injection. I think, let's see. Okay, so after that, I guess, well, the kind of symptoms went away and I was feeling better, and then that would kind of happen on and off throughout my second year of college. So, it was concerning, and then I kind of started to notice that every time I would get these, these episodes or flares with these symptoms, it was a result of, or I mean, not a result, a direct result, but it was correlated with me feeling under the weather. So whether I had a cold or maybe an infection, those were the times that I would get, the headache, total body fatigue, and blood in my urine, or like a discolored urine color. And then after my second year of college, we did more labs, and it turned out my GFR was 37. So GFR stands for glomerular filtration rate. It's kind of a tongue twister, but that's basically like it's a test that is run based on your lab work, and that kind of generalizes down to how well your kidneys are functioning. So my GFR was 37, meaning my kidneys were functioning at about a 37%, how do I phrase this? My kidneys were functioning at 30%. 30%. My kidneys were functioning at about 37%, out of that 100-point scale. So that was concerning because that was like a huge drop in terms of how well my kidneys were functioning just months or a year prior. So from there, I decided to do the kidney biopsy that the nephrologist that I spoke to had recommended. I was pretty eager to find out what the results were going to be, just because I was I was in the dark, basically, in terms of what was going on with my health and why I was getting all these episodes and flares, with the symptoms that go along with those. Let's see. So yeah, I guess I was more anxious about kind of the outcome and what the outcome would kind of mean for me and my health, rather than being kind of more nervous and anxious about the actual procedure of the biopsy itself. So anyways, I went in at 7 a.m. For a 9 a.m. biopsy. I guess specifically, it was an ultrasound guided left renal biopsy, which is, biopsy on my left kidney, and they use an ultrasound to do that. And actually, it was kind of funny. The worst part about that, I guess, and it wasn't even that bad, really, it was just an injection that they did to my left kidney so that it would be numbed up, and then the biopsy, I hardly felt it, but I knew they put in 2 needles, or 2, I don't know what they are. They're not really syringes. 2 needles, I guess we'll just go with needles. And they took 2 samples out of my left kidney. But of course I was numbed up, so I didn't really feel anything. And then after that, I think I spent a couple hours just recovering while being monitored. And then I think by 1 p.m. I was able to go home. So it's a pretty fast procedure, and on top of that, I was only sore for maybe like a day or 2 afterward, and then everything was kind of back to normal. Let's see. Oh yeah, so the day after my biopsy, I got a call from my nephrologist, and he said, oh, they're still finalizing the reports, but from the looks of it, you don't have what I, as in he, originally suspected, which was IgA nephropathy. He thought it was something called membranous glomerulonephritis. And he said it was an acute, he said it was acute and there wasn't a lot of permanence. It was just kind of an idiopathic, or I guess an unknown caused source of inflammation. And I don't know, from the sounds of that and like that particular phone call, it sounded, or the news sounded good rather than bad. But then later on, the final report came back, and it turns out I did have IgA nephropathy. And I guess the nephrologist's original suspicions were actually confirmed. Let's see. Yeah, so the biopsy that came, or the results of the biopsy were that my kidneys had some scarring, so fibrosis, and also some damage, some permanent like damage, I guess. But the good news at that point was that I had about 75% kidney mass still left, which was good because I guess you can have about 15% kidney mass and like functional kidney mass, and still, you know, I don't know, survive healthily, more or less. So I guess, as you can imagine, I was pretty overwhelmed. For the 2 years prior to that, I had no idea what was going on. And then, you know, at age 20, I was diagnosed with a form of chronic kidney disease. Oh, I guess I should jump back and talk about what IgA nephropathy is. So IgA nephropathy is an autoimmune disease where, you know, IgA, which is an antibody, gets built up in your kidneys, and then it causes inflammation and damage. So it's a chronic kidney disease, and it's one that I have. So let's see, I'll jump back to this other stuff. From there, I guess, after being diagnosed, it was time to talk about medication and what I could potentially do to I guess, make my kidneys last longer, or, you know, make myself live longer. There isn't really a cure for IgA nephropathy. It's more of like just a disease that you try and manage as best as possible. You know, because you don't want to have that inflammation happen in your kidneys, so you kind of have to do all these certain things to counteract the inflammation, which ultimately, I mean, the inflammation ultimately causes the damage long term. So I first started off with 10 milligrams of lisinopril every day, and that was meant to reduce my blood pressure. So I guess, high level speaking, if you reduce the blood pressure, your kidneys don't have as much, they're not strained as much and don't have to filter as much or as fast as they would if you had high blood pressure, which like would put a lot of strain on your kidneys. And then I also, I was doing a high dose of prednisone, which is an immunosuppressant, a steroid, and that was meant to kind of suppress my immune system so that there wouldn't be all these IgA or antibodies building up in my kidneys, and then you know, that would hopefully reduce the inflammation there. But 60 milligrams was a lot. It was a lot to handle. I guess it was there was a lot of strain on my body, and I think probably by most professionals, I think they would say that 60 milligrams was like a very high dose. Let's see. Okay, so from there, after kind of getting started on medications to hopefully counteract the inflammation, I saw a kidney or a renal nutritionist. It was fairly helpful, actually, because I had no idea how to kind of manage my diet, and I didn't know how my diet could affect my kidney function. So what the nutritionist and I discussed was that I needed to do a low protein diet. I had to do, you know, a low sodium diet, low potassium, low phosphorus, and also low calcium. And I think, as a side note, you should be eating, like, your diet should be planned in accordance to your most recent set of lab work, or I guess your urine maybe even, just because that will help you kind of manage your internal bodily balances, more or less. So let's see. Oh yeah, interesting story. So when I was doing 60 milligrams of prednisone every single day, I was actually, shortly after starting the prednisone, I went on vacation. I went to Utah to do like this canyon hiking trip. So I went to like Zion and all those other national parks, and everything was fine for the most part for the majority of the trip, except like towards the end, there was, let's see, I was in Zion, and after a long day of hiking, I went to go sit in the hot tub, and I was only in there for like 20 minutes, and then I got out, and like that next, maybe even that night, but that next day for sure, my legs just started to like swell. Like it was pretty wild. My ankles all the way up to like my mid thigh were like swollen and bloated, and there was like a lot of water retention going on, and there was also a lot of bloating and swelling going on in my like stomach area. So that was weird. So anyways, I got back from the trip and I consulted with my nephrologist about that. She suggested that I taper down the prednisone because I guess my body just couldn't tolerate it. And I was kind of glad that we were planning on going about, I guess, managing my health in a different way, because when I was taking that high dose of prednisone, I really just felt bad. It's a hard thing to describe, but like my body just felt bad. I felt like, I don't know, not immobile, but like close to it, and I had a lot of like acne going on, and I was just tired. So anyways, after that, let's see. Oh yeah, at that point, well, at that point, I guess my GFR was 50, so my kidneys were functioning at about 50%. So I guess, well, I know I mentioned prior that at one point my kidneys were functioning at about 37%. After that 37%, it jumped up to 75%. I guess after that flare, or episode, as I've been calling them. So I guess my kidney function was fairly volatile. So it jumped from 37 to 75, and then after the canyon trip, after I spoke to my nephrologist, we did another set of labs, and it went down to 50%. So it was kind of crazy, the volatility that there was in my kidney function, but that, I guess, that 75 to 50% of my kidney function, that was when I was healthy. I guess the 37% was kind of when I had one of those episodes or flares. So that drop of 25% kidney function was kind of scary. So from there, my nephrologist, we talked about lowering my dosage of prednisone, and then she also suggested that I start Cytoxan. Now, Cytoxan is a chemotherapy medication. So that was also super scary because I was 20 years old and I'd never ever thought that I would be taking, chemotherapy medications, at least at that age. And, well, anyway, so I started that. And that was supposed to be a 3-month treatment. And everything, I did it, but everything from there, it was like, all downhill in terms of like how my body was feeling, because the Cytoxan was an immunosuppressant as well. So it's meant to just kind of lower the entire immune system and like how it's functioning, so that hopefully the inflammation doesn't happen and kind of damage my kidneys more. So I almost made it through the entire treatment, except on New Year's, and I also, by the way, I can kind of dive into the whole chemotherapy treatment in a bit more detail later on, or in a different video. But I almost made it through the entire treatment, but I think 1 or 2 weeks prior to the total 3 months, or what is that, 12 weeks, it was New Year's Eve, and then I went out to eat at this like Peruvian fusion restaurant, and that later on that night I just felt awful. There was stuff coming out of me from both ends, and it felt like I was gonna explode basically. So I went to the ER, and I spent 4 days there. It turned out I had what is it called? Clostridium difficile infection, which is for short C. diff. That was unlucky because I was taking the chemotherapy medication, which was an immunosuppressant. I was taking the prednisone, which was also an immunosuppressant. So my immune system was just like, very, very low. And then of course I get like this very bad infection, this C. diff infection, which is, it was just very unfortunate. So anyways, I was in the hospital for like 4 days, stuff coming out of me from both ends, and actually it's funny, so C. diff is, so hand sanitizer, those bottles or those dispensers mounted on a wall, usually those always say, oh yeah, this helps fight against infections or like bacteria, or like 99.99% bacteria or whatever. And then it says somewhere on the bottle also, oh, this does not protect against C. diff. So basically I got like that very, very small percentage of bacteria or whatever that caused me to get the C. diff infection. So that cut my chemotherapy Cytoxan kind of treatment short by a week or two. So then I started taking Imuran, which is also an immunosuppressant, but it's not quite so toxic or harsh on my body. And yeah, I think that sums it up for like all the different medications that I've taken so far. Now I'm taking prednisone still, but only at 5 milligrams every other day. And then I'm taking Imuran, the immunosuppressant that I just mentioned, 75 milligrams every day. But yeah, my kidney function seems to fluctuate right now at about 50, well I guess my GFR, we'll say, ranges from about 54 to low 30s, so like 31, or 54% to 31%. And that kind of depends on whether I am fully healthy or if I get sick, like catch a cold or an infection. Let's see. Oh yeah. So that kind of wraps it up for the most part about my health history. Sorry, Siri. Let's see. Yeah, lately I've been feeling pretty good actually. I've kind of broadened my horizons in terms of, different things that I do, or I guess am willing to do, in order to sustain my health or maybe even better my health. I used to kind of solely rely on Western pharmaceutical medications as like as the only source of helping myself. I don't really know how to phrase it. So I used to depend on the Western pharmaceutical medications to help my kidneys function or like last. And overall that kind of affects me because I need my kidneys so that I last. But let's see, I started taking diet into consideration far more heavily than what the nutritionist I spoke to years ago kind of mentioned or like discussed with me. So I kind of learned a lot about like what's good for me to eat and what's not, and that was largely something that I had to do on my own. Kind of like that's just something you have to do your own due diligence on, because everyone is different. Everyone is affected by foods differently. Some people can eat more of one thing, others not so much or not at all. And yeah, I mean, prior to, oh, well, I guess I have a bunch of stuff down here. So prior to being diagnosed at 20 years old with chronic kidney disease or IgA nephropathy, I would eat anything and everything, which is what I mentioned earlier as well. So I would eat, I was actually largely carnivorous, so I would eat steak or beef, chicken, pork, fish, basically any form of meat. I would eat that. And it's not just like here and there, like I would eat those meat proteins every single day at some point, maybe even multiple times a day multiple times a day. So then I really had to kind of like make a transition to the low protein diet that the renal nutritionist and I discussed. But even from there, actually, I did a little bit more due diligence and research, and I found that, maybe it's best if I just don't eat meat. So I kind of transitioned then from doing the whole low protein diet to being vegetarian. And then from there, I was like, yeah, well, I'm already so close to like just being, or just like cutting out any sort of animal products whatsoever, which is, being vegetarian, you eat like dairy, I guess. So like milk and eggs and all that stuff. I decided to cut that out too. So now I'm whole foods, plant-based, or I guess you could kind of call it vegan. There's like slight differences, but essentially vegan, I guess. And I feel much, much better than I ever had prior to, I guess when I decided to go vegan. And of course I still do the low sodium, potassium, phosphorus, and calcium diet as well, in combination with the whole foods plant-based diet. A couple other things that I do in order to kind of sustain my health is I do monthly IVIG infusions at the infusion center. So IVIG stands for intravenous immunoglobulin infusion or treatment. And then I also get shots or injections for my anemia, because anemia is actually something that a lot of people with chronic kidney disease have. So that's another thing that I do. I do both of those monthly at the same time, kind of like killing two birds with one stone. And then another thing I tried, and I'm not currently doing it, but I plan on doing it again, is acupuncture. I started doing acupuncture I think about a year ago or so, and I took a short break recently just because my practitioner retired. He'll probably actually watch this video at some point. I'm planning on showing it to him, but yeah, so I haven't done acupuncture recently, but I started it about a year ago, and then kind of after starting with the acupuncture, I started doing herbal medicines, like Eastern herbal medicines. And I think, as of right now at least, I'm a bit torn in terms of my opinion on those. That's a whole nother story I could kind of get into. But basically, I tried herbal medicines as well, but I'm not doing those right now, at least. Let's see, I think that covers it for forms of therapy. Yeah. So I know this video is pretty long. I'm hoping that everyone is now caught up to speed on my health, and if you found this video interesting or useful, please click like and also subscribe. Like I said in the beginning of this video, I'll be posting more content on topics such as, well, my health, my experiences, the whole foods plant-based diet, health and fitness, and also a few more things that will probably be fairly interesting or useful. But yeah, I think definitely if you found this useful or interesting, follow me on Instagram as well, because I'll be posting content there, maybe even more often than I do on YouTube. But I just want to say that I really enjoy helping people. I know that this channel, or my hope is that this channel might be able to provide a little bit of insight, tips and tricks, or knowledge on, you know, chronic kidney disease. And if you know someone who might be going through something similar to what I have gone through or might be going through, definitely let them know about this channel as well as my Instagram, both of which will be posted in the info section below. Yeah, if you have any comments or questions, feel free to post them down in the comment section below as well. And thank you for watching my first YouTube video.